offensive stretcher the college football team can choose from. The veer, the wishbone, the most popular one? Well, this year the eyes have it. I'm Eric Parsegian, and I'll have that story.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to CBS Sports' second season with the NCAA today. I'm Brent Musburger, and again, my colleagues, the coach, Eric Parsegian, Pat O'Brien, back from all his travels, and every week they'll return from a trip around the country to spend Saturdays with us and make everything clear. Eric, is your golf game improving now that you're no longer coaching?
Well, I had some good rounds this summer and some bad rounds this summer, but I'm looking forward to a great, good fall.
You were certainly busy this summer.
I sure was, Brent. I gave my passport a workout. I was in Edmonton, Canada, and Caracas, Venezuela. But I came back to the U.S. Open and ended up in Auburn, Alabama.
Down in Auburn right now, Pat, they are preparing for the game of the day. It is Auburn against Texas. And, of course, both of these teams have a chance to win the national championship. And they want to get started on the right foot. Speaking of feet, Bo Jackson from Auburn. He is one of the finest running backs in America today. But who will quarterback Texas? Rob Morshell, known as a runner. Number 8 has drawn the start today ahead of Rick McIver, who is the passer and who can come in off the bench for the coach, Freddie Akers. Todd Dodge, who might have beaten both of them out, is not playing because of an injury. And another major game today puts Ohio State at Oklahoma. And that matches a whole lot more than the running of the Sooners' marvelous Marcus Dupree. He is against the Buckeyes' brilliant quarterback, Mike Tomczak. Now, it's a game that also is going to have an impact on the national ratings, and either one of these teams could conceivably wind up the season number 1. One team we know won't be this year's number 1 is last year's number 1.
The scene was the Sugar Bowl, and the sky was the limit as Todd Blackledge teamed with Greg Garrity for a score against Georgia. Blackledge and running back Kurt Warner set 68 Penn State records in their fabulous careers. And the 27-23 defeat of Georgia was the proudest moment of all, producing the Nittany Lions' first ever national title. For Joe Paterno, it was the top of the world. But what a fall when this season began. Paterno tried to be realistic, saying winning a national title will not produce any first downs, but few were prepared for Nebraska's easy 44-6 rout. Even fewer were ready for what happened last Saturday when Cincinnati used the venerable shovel pass to bury the Lions. Remember, these were the Cincinnati Bearcats, not the Bengals. But they did a professional job against Joe Paterno.
One of the great upsets in college football history is about to take place. 3, 2, it's all over. Cincinnati has upset Penn State 14-3.
It's not easy living with the first 0-2 start in Paterno's 18 years.
I've been here 4 years, and we've only lost about 5 games. And to lose 2 back-to-back, and, my senior year of any year, is very disappointing.
Well, I don't think it's the end of the world because you're 0-2. I think we've gained some experience in some key spots in the first 2 games. I think we've got a good, solid squad. I like the squad. I like our team. I enjoy working with them, enjoy coaching them, and I think we're going to get better.
If Penn State is no longer the beast of the East, who is? West Virginia? Pittsburgh? How about Maryland? But then there is this Boston College team, led by their gem of a junior quarterback, Doug Flutie. The Eagles came from behind for a very big win last week over Clemson, 31-16.
And who better to ask than Doug Flutie, who is here with us live right now. Doug, can you be the best college football team in the East this year?
We'd like to think so. Right now, West Virginia's looking strong, Pittsburgh, and Penn State's having their problems right now, but I'm sure they'll get their act straight by the end of the season. We're shooting for the number 1 spot in the East.
You passed brilliantly a couple of times against Clemson, but how about your running game in that comeback? Were you surprised by that?
I was a little surprised at the total success we had running. I thought we'd off and on have success running against them, but we did a lot of things with formations and double strength, which helped us out, and our offensive line just did a fantastic job, and we were able to run the ball at them, and that's how we came back.
Doug, sometimes after big wins, there's a tendency on the part of young football teams to let down the following week. Rutgers has played Boston College tough. Is there a chance that when you meet tonight at the Meadowlands in New Jersey that there will be a letdown?
I don't think there'll be a letdown. There's a chance that Rutgers could play us tough, but they're a good football team. We're not going to let down. We're ready for the game. We prepared just like any other game, and we've had problems with them in the years past. So we're not taking this game easy or lightly, and we're looking forward to a good game.
I would think that you would have a chance to be the All-American quarterback this year. Is that a goal?
It's something that I might be able to attain, but I'd like to set it as a goal. The only way to do that, though, is to have a successful season, and the team plays well. That's how you win personal stats.
I say this jokingly. You're not too short like our Pat Hayden, are you, the quarterback?
I don't think so. It's never been a problem, and a lot of people like to talk about it. I'm not the stereotypical quarterback, but things have gone well for me, so I don't think I'm too short.
Doug, good luck tonight.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, and Pat O'Brien, you've got a story about another quarterback.
That's right, Brett. Thank you. Sometimes it's hard to remember. All this started in 1869 when a group of collegians decided it might be fun to kick around a bag of wind. Well, right now, Tulane University finds itself in the midst of a situation so complicated it may wind up in the United Nations. As Brent tells us, it centers on a coach's son who loves college so much he's attended 5 of them.
Tulane's starting quarterback, Bubba Brister, says he will transfer to make room for Tulane's other quarterback, John English, a transfer student with problems of his own. English replaced Brister, and last Saturday he beat Ole Miss with that touchdown pass. That delighted Tulane's new head coach, Wally English, who happens to be John's father. John transferred to play under his dad at Tulane this season, but now he is suing Tulane and the NCAA to keep his eligibility. A temporary restraining order allows him to play. Now, the NCAA says a student must sit out a year when, after playing at a 4-year school, he transfers to another. But English believes that he has found a loophole. The rule specifically says the athlete must sit out a year after he leaves his first 4-year school, and that word first is critically important. English played last year at Iowa State, but John English has attended 5 colleges. He has played football at 3 of them. John's first transfer occurred over 3 years ago, an interpretation the NCAA had not intended, and the courts must decide the issue.
John has gone through every administrative channel that is offered by the NCAA to gain eligibility, and he has not been successful, so the only recourse left to him is to pursue it legally.
Meanwhile, Bubba Brister has determined the situation is not good for him, and he's decided to take his talents elsewhere.
The way things turned out, it seemed like this was going to happen all year and maybe continue, so thought it'd be in my best interest to go somewhere else.
Where we're not sure Brister will wind up, Northeast Louisiana is certainly one of the possibilities. As for English, that temporary injunction will carry him through 3 more Tulane games, including today. And the NCAA Today will continue on CBS in just a moment. You are looking at Commonwealth Stadium in Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky, Indiana, another of the games being covered today by CBS, a confrontation between 2 new coaches. Sam White's at Indiana, and of course, Jerry Claiborne at Kentucky. Claiborne already is 2-0, and Pat O'Brien, he is trying to accomplish what Pat Dye has done down at Auburn.
That's right, Brent. You know, when most people think of Alabama football, they actually think of Alabama football. The Crimson Tide is doing all right so far this season, 1-0, but there's another 1-0 team, also in Alabama, which thinks it's about time they got more attention. And they're right. When Paul Bryant died this year, there was little argument that a legend had passed. But there were legacies as well. All those athletes he touched and all those coaches he taught. One he taught now is in the same line of work, a couple of 100 miles down the road at Auburn. He is Pat Dye, a Southern gentleman who now finds himself in the position of perhaps becoming another Alabama legend.
When the job came open at Auburn, I knew that it was a perfect setting for my background and for me.
Pat Dye grew up in the South. For the exception of a short stay in Wyoming, has always worked in the South. Quite frankly, he's quite comfortable with Southern ways. For that matter, he's quite comfortable with the Southern roads and highways. He is a well-traveled recruiter down here. Indeed, recruiting may be Pat Dye's #1 asset. Some down here went so far to say Bear Bryant was a little worried about his former student coaching in the Southeastern Conference because Dye was such a good recruiter. Dye takes a more modest view.
There's so many football players here in this area that we live in. Quality high school players that come from quality high school programs. We're the luckiest coaches in the world that live here in this southeast area.
In his 2 years at Auburn, Dye has already put together a program strong enough to place high in the rankings and early out credible enough to prove Auburn means business.
He's a great organizer. He's intelligent. He's an innovator.
He's a great coach.
Coach Dye is great. Coach Dye is going to make us all forget Bear Bryant.
If one word could describe Pat Dye, it might be work. He loves to work, loves to make people work, loves to watch them work, and loves to talk about work.
You're on a real work ethic down here, is that what you?
Well, you know, Pat, I was a 190-pound guard, and you know, I couldn't even play football if it wasn't for work.
Perhaps the one athlete who personified Pat Dye's theory of working was Greg Pratt, who was a walk-on with no scholarship, who earned himself a top position on the team.
Touchdown to the fullback, Greg Pratt. Beautiful run.
Tragically, Pratt collapsed during a preseason session in what is still referred to as a freak accident. He died of a heart attack. So, how did Pat Dye get his team through this ordeal? Work.
I think that our players and our coaches, assistant coaches, did a great job of working through that time period and not losing sight of our goals and realizing that, you know, that's what Greg would have wanted the team and the coaches to do.
The great football teams improve when you win.
Coach Dye seems to be settling into this job quite nicely. While his contract calls for a $58,000 yearly salary, the extras are staggering. A radio TV show deal, commercials, 2 cars, and this $410,000 home in Auburn. He will keep all this if he stays 14 years. He plans to do this and become the kind of teacher Bear Bryant was, but with his own work methods and style. And so far, it seems to be working.
We know what it takes to win, and we know that we're going to have to pay the price to get it done. And he's given us the faith to pay the price and believing that all the good things are going to happen to us and the goals that we've set will be reached.
I asked Coach Dye just how long he plans to stay at Auburn, and he said he plans to help raise his grandchildren there. And you know, Brent, with the kind of schedule he's got this season, it might seem like a lifetime. He's got Tennessee next week, Florida State, Kentucky, and at the end of the season, Georgia and Alabama back-to-back.
You know, I don't think there'll ever be another Bear Bryant down south, though, Pat.
No, I don't think so either. Bear Bryant was an extraordinary human being, an extraordinary coach. But you get over those things. I mean, they got over General Island in Tennessee. They got over Newt Rockne in Notre Dame. And Pat Dye, I think, he told me that there's enough football and enough legends in the South for everybody.
All right. We will continue here with the NCAA Today on CBS in just a moment. We are just minutes away from Auburn taking on Texas, and of course both teams have dreams of a national championship, and they'd like to get started this afternoon. And you know, Nebraska thought it lost the national title last year only because of a disputed pass play by Penn State. They made sure that didn't happen again, and now after walloping Penn State and Wyoming, the national title talk in Nebraska is heating up again. The Cornhuskers play Minnesota tonight, but their toughest game of the season will be November 26th at Oklahoma. That game could be for not only the Big 8 championship, but the national title and, oh yes, the Heisman Trophy. Now, this year's frontrunners are Nebraska's Mike Rozier, the leading rusher in Cornhusker history, and Oklahoma's sensational sophomore, Marcus Dupree. Both are eye-backs, an era that seems to be a good omen for Heisman candidates over the last few years.
Brent, it has been a great omen for him. As a matter of fact, the last 10 Heisman Trophy winners have been running backs. And of the 10, 9 have run out of the I formation. More than 70% of the major colleges now run some form of the I, and more than 30% use it exclusively. The offense was popularized by Coach John McKay at USC in the 1960s and 70s, but it was a long time evolving. He gets the ball. The I-back gets all the publicity. And Nebraska, Mark Shaleen blocks for Mike Rozier.
Mark, he do a great job blocking. He blocks real well for me. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't get a lot of yards in the offensive line.
Does it bother you that all the publicity goes to the running back rather than to the fullback?
Sometimes it bothers me, but not really, you know, when you got talented people like Mike. In Nebraska tradition, you know, you just have to be a good blocking back because that's mainly what you do. You might get it 2-3 times a game, but you're not really involved with the rushing that much.
Nebraska coach Tom Osborne knows that there is one advantage in being the fullback in the I.
Well, he used to play, and you know, most of these guys probably are the kind of players that wouldn't play, you know, if they had to be an I-back or carry the ball. So that's the way they get to play.
The eye is so versatile, you can pass, bootleg, run the option, and oh yes, you can even give it to the fullback.
It was a big thrill for me because I hadn't scored this year, you know, and then also we don't get the ball that often, so when we do get the ball, you know, I try to do well on it.
Era, last year, Oklahoma switched after 3 games prior to the Iowa State game. They installed the eye. Why would Barry Switzer do that?
Well, a number of teams have done it, Brent, taking that eye back, the great running back like Marcus Dupree and whoever it may be, putting him 7 yards back where he can read the defense better, and he really option runs. Not only that, it's like taking a baseball player and your best hitter and letting him bat all the time. You got your best runner with the ball in his hands most of the time, and it's tough to defend.
Fewer fumbles than the wishbone. Why?
Much safer in the handoff because he's lined up 7 yards deep. He's in a stand-up position. The quarterback has more time to get him the ball, and it's a safer type of offense to run, yet with great versatility.
All right. We will continue with the NCAA today here on CBS in just a moment. We are just minutes away now from the kickoff. Auburn and Texas, and again, Texas has named Rob Marshall as its starting quarterback today.
If you remember the 1940s and 50s, you may remember trombonist Jack Teagarden singing "Stars Fell on Alabama Last Night." Well, now Brent tells us the lights went out in Louisiana last week.
It happened in the Superdome, where Ole Miss was leading Tulane. The crowd didn't seem in the dark yet. The Green Wave came rolling back, trailing by 3 after this touchdown. Let radio tell you what happened next.
At the line of scrimmage, the blitz is on. They throw the ball down the middle, completed it, and the lights go out in the stadium. Oh boy!
Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end.
The blackout lasted 25 minutes. Tulane finally won with 2 minutes left, and it proved once again that a coach can't prepare for everything.
Well, you know, I've lost football games as a football coach, but I've never had anybody turn the lights out on. Very few coaches have, gentlemen. Era, what about a major confrontation early in the season like Texas-Auburn?
Well, I would like to have one. If you have national championship aspirations, it's better to have one, believe me. But don't lose it if you can avoid it.
You know, we've got a busy day. A little bit later this afternoon, Boom Boom Mancini will be in, and you'll see that fight coming up on CBS Sports Saturday. That's right after the football action. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.